you do. Thank you so much. Let me share my screen here. That's not the browser I want. All right, so hello everyone, happy Thursday, day 2 of COLTT. I hope you've gotten as much out of these sessions as we have. Today, I've the great pleasure of bringing you a topic that we've been wrestling with and thinking about over the last 18 months, more focused, but before then as well, thinking about connection and relationship and the works of Nell Noddings and bell hooks on belonging and that kind of thing. So last year just kind of accelerated our own work and our own coaching and that kind of thing. So we wanted to present what we've been working on, and so many other sessions have been talking and discussing as well, which is a pedagogy of care, and more specifically for the sake of this session, in online learning. So my name is Nicolas Pares, and I'm here today with my colleague, Mandy Singleton.
Hello, everyone. Mandy Singleton. I work at DU with Nicolas.
Yeah, we're both teaching and learning specialists, but we are faculty coaches and instructional designers. Those are our primary functions. So let's kick it off here.
All right, so on our agenda today, welcome everyone. Today we're going to be covering kind of our working definition, and I call it a working definition because it's a work in progress that Nicolas and I have been studying for quite a while. So our working definition of pedagogy of care, and we'd like to hear some ways that we might plan for care in both the design and delivery of courses online. And it could be for on-campus ones now that we're back to some on-campus learning as well. And so then we can also brainstorm some new strategies or just hear from all of you what kind of some of your strategies are related to this topic.
So thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know, as Mandy had mentioned, we like to take the student-centered approach. So that keeping in mind that that's where we're starting from and we're thinking about, and through this presentation, we'll show you some things for different modalities across the spectrum, right? Full online all the way to on campus or high flex type scenarios and hybrid in between. But we wanted to start from the student perspective. And these two images, I'm a graduate student myself, many of us are lifelong learners and we continue our own intellectual pursuits, but these two images for me and our University College, University of Denver kind of setting kind of resonated. Many of our students are at distance, are online. So the individual on the right with a pencil in her mouth, I chewed pencils growing up all through K-12. So I'm like, I saw this and I'm like, yep, I can resonate with that. But I imagine that she's opened a Canvas course and she's staring at a blank LMS or a very detailed assignment that individual is now kind of struggling with and figuring out, thinking through. And then on the left is the more traditional experience that many of us have had, the in-person, classroom full of individuals, maybe a mixed adult learning scenario where everyone's bringing their own perspective, everyone's different and unique on the left, and they're connecting with each other, physically and in person and with their instructor, and he's able to see them and bring back certain points in the lecture back to an individual's experience and really make things connect. So thinking about those student perspectives is important in our work every day. So to dive a little bit deeper and to unpack that student perspective further, we want to go ahead and read through this little tidbit here. I'll read it out loud. It kind of puts us in the mindset of our students and individuals in that kind of area. So as we enter the learning space and our students return to the virtual classrooms or physical classrooms, many instructors, parents, and students have concerns and wonder how the learning may feel in this new normal. Will we feel connected? Will we be seen and heard? Will we feel like we belong in these new classrooms or in these old classrooms as we return to the on-campus experience? As we, students and teachers alike, aim to foster inquiry, curiosity, agency, and growth, we can lose sight of what can best support this opportunity to learn, to take risks, and to think critically, which can be care and belonging or connection. So let that ruminate with you for a moment, get ourselves in this mindset. The three kind of lines in the middle, I have a question I'll pose to chat. So think about this, and please feel free to answer one of these questions in the chat. Let's take a few moments to really get ourselves in this mindset.
So how can we make students feel connected or seen and heard in an online space, or create a sense of belonging in that space?
Yeah. How might we do these things? Or in your experience from a student, how might those feel?
So you can add ideas to the chat.
Or share an experience, that would be fine as well.
Mm-hmm. Excellent, yes. Invite safe sharing of experiences. Always using names, personal emails. Giving students choice.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Appreciate these. They really cover the gambit of modalities and spaces for interaction, right? We may not all come face to face with our students, but we should probably be looking to understand them and build understanding for their experiences, and then use that, right? So if that happens in discussion or in person after class, our intent is to make sure that that connection is there. These are great.
Yeah, excellent. I saw a digital story in there.
Different means of representation, some UDL.
Right. Excellent.
Build community, authentic self. Yeah, great.
Excellent.
Okay.
All right, so let's take a look at what is the research behind some of these ideas in creating this value of care in the learning spaces. First of all, Nell Noddings, a very American philosopher, leading figure in the ethics of care, both in K-12 and the higher education community. She argues that care is the foundation of education. Empathy and care are closely connected and they're relational. It should be a reciprocal relationship between instructors and students, or from student to student. And it's what creates a student's sense of being cared for in the classroom. These feelings in a classroom setting, we teach students first and curriculum second. So we really need to keep that aspect in mind, that yes, we need to connect with those students, because that is our ultimate goal, is that student connection to teach them that curriculum. And then in addition, we found this kind of this study on faculty members being kind of our essential partners in both the recruitment and retention of students within our programs. Research, it shows the impact of faculties, especially adjuncts, are often the first ones to have, they have first year students, and they also often have at-risk students, but this can also, our tenured and every type of instructor in between are really essential to that retention of students and their success within our programs. Especially in the online and hybrid learning spaces as well. Adjuncts especially are essential to that. And we need to build capacity in both the instructor delivery and in the design of our courses to foster this sense of care in the courses.
Yeah, that's really, yeah.
And then if you want to go on to the next slide there, Nicholas. So how do we center this sense of care and belonging in our classrooms? In a higher education learning space, it's not enough that we're squeezing care into the design itself. We need to flip that narrative and make sure that we are designing with care in mind and that we are delivering with care in mind first. All right. So Nicholas, I'm going to hand it off to you.
Yeah. So now that we've seen that the value of these relationships and making sure that these relationships are there and built, we know we bring this approach and intentional careness to the center of our teaching practices, our design, our delivery. Let's look at some additional research. A PhD dissertation from 2015, pre-COVID, on the factors, 8 factors found to influence the perception of care in college classrooms. For those of you who are research-minded, this is a qualitative phenomenological study involving interviews of students and faculty, instructors, and a mix of interview and survey data collection going into that. So the 8 factors that were identified were verbal expressions of care. So, you know, whether or not they stood in front of the class and mentioned like, how are you all doing? Spent the first couple of minutes of class reaching out and checking about how everyone is actually doing, or if you did that on a Zoom call, or if you did it in a discussion board, those verbal expressions of care land and leave a perception of care upon our students. Nonverbal expressions of care, in many ways that shows up. Especially in person, you know, when we take the time or we take action that expresses care to our students. Knowing students' names, that was mentioned initially. Using students' names, every discussion post that I do, I respond kind of in the email language. I say, hi, so-and-so, and then I leave my response below that. So it can even show up in discussion boards if you're using those in your instruction and your modality and in your design. Displaying care and concern during office hours, offering up Zoom office hours, one-to-one or big group, where maybe you don't just say, we can talk about the assignment, we can talk about anything. You know, there were always, in my experience, there are always those instructors who I wanted to go have a pizza with or go hang out with, or, you know, and some of that relationship building could be done and shows up as a perception of care in the class. Making an effort to get to know students. So starting out your quarter, your semester with a discussion board, that asking them about their background and sharing it with each other. That's a great practice, certainly shows some care. And then using that in your feedback upon delivery and informing your videos or however you're connecting with your students through the quarter or semester. Is a great way to follow up and create a perception of care. Creating interesting and applicable lessons. And that could be on the design side, right, where you give plenty of student choice and many options, or on the delivery side, where as you're learning about your students in the quarter, in the semester, you're giving insight as to like how they could take the direction of their assignment and make it more meaningful towards their background, who they are individually and their interests and motivations. And that kind of thing. So think about it both ways, the design and kind of the delivery of your care. And then the existence of the feeling of care. This is a really unique aspect to this factor. And if you want to learn more, I would say go please read this dissertation. It's available. The feeling of care is a sense of care that your students pick up on. Maybe for the younger crowd, they may use the phrase like feels. And that's kind of what they refer to when they say a sense of or a feeling of care. So there's just a general sense of care. Maybe your language and how you've taken them through the course leads them to just a general sense of like, I know my instructor cares. And that leaves it with a high perception of care, really good, strong relationships that carry students to continue to retention and student success ultimately. So some factors that we can use and we can begin to think through in different modalities and how we do these on the design and delivery side.
So what might a pedagogy of care look like in the design of our courses? And what might the pedagogy of care look like in the delivery of our courses? So again, we're going to have you share some of your own ideas about what this might look like in a design that you have done, or if you are an instructor, something you have done in a classroom setting. This can be for asynchronous or synchronous courses, or even on-campus ones. So in the chat, if you wouldn't mind just throwing in what are some of the ideas you have done to specifically design for the relational piece between instructors and students, or from student to student. An example would be, for instance, in my course, utilizing that introductory discussion. I create a Padlet and I encourage my students to do the same, or I give them a variety of tech resources that they can use to create something similar. That's sort of like a learning profile. And so in this Padlet, I include pictures of myself and my hobbies and like where I'm from and, you know, what I've studied or what my credentials are and any publications, things like that, that I add in the Padlet for students to view. And then each of the students does that with themselves as well. So in the online learning space, I still get to know their faces. They often share pictures of their pets or just things about them. And then I can use that information when I'm giving feedback to those students about how this feedback I'm giving them helps in these different areas of their lives. So let's see, what are some of the ideas that we're putting out here? Nicholas, anything interesting coming up?
Yeah, some syllabi language. I think that would be really cool to see that from the get-go, saying, you know, I care about you, or let's really take your experience through this course material and topics. That would be really excellent if you have the ability. Some of them may not. In my own teaching, I don't teach at DU, but at the institution I do teach at, they give me a syllabi. Though there are spaces for me to take that language, to do that kind of language.
Right. I really like this one. I share of myself. It's that vulnerability of showing you are sharing about yourself to invite others to share about themselves as well. Celebrating life events. That's excellent. Even as Nicholas mentioned, I use student names in a discussion board. For instance, if they're doing some personal reflection or something and they share something quite personal in a discussion board, I always make sure I acknowledge the vulnerability it takes for the students to do that.
Lisa mentioned.
Oh yes, name badge. Yeah, excellent.
I forget the name of the one. I think I know which one you're talking about. Totally spacing the name though.
Oh, excellent.
One that caught my eye was Lisa said last semester it took an entire week out of instruction to have one-to-one Zoom calls, right? And that is truly what we're talking about here. You are taking your time and energy, you're imagining your teaching and your instruction to be not just to the test, to the books, to the material, but centered around connecting one-to-one with students. So that's awesome, Lisa, that you took the time to do that. And
yeah, excellent.
sense for where people were at.
Anecdotes, excellent. About your own experiences as a student, that would be an excellent, that's an excellent way to connect.
Yeah. One way that I wanted to make sure at time to share on was bringing this sense of care into our feedback and our grading practices. Many of us follow, there are many different kind of frameworks out there. I use a constructive feedback, and I coach faculty on using a constructive feedback that consists of 3 C's essentially. The first one being confirm something they do well. The second one being correct everything they do wrong. Let's not forget to do that. And then the third one is coach them around how to improve, because we often forget to do that. If we are just marking with a red pen everything they do wrong, but we never tell them how to improve, then we're missing the mark on that. But with centering care, maybe we change that first C to, and I didn't tell Mandy about this, but what if we change this first C to care? And we just show a little bit of connection, and we care in even in our feedback. So our commenting in Canvas or our videos that we share with everyone, we take a moment to care and connect with everybody and say, this is great. I see your background coming out in this assignment and your enthusiasm for the, and this is everything you did wrong. Yeah, and this is how to improve. So that's another great way that I think we could really bring this into the delivery side and to our instruction and teaching. Thank you all so much for sharing your ideas with us. If you have more, want to reach out and talk more about this, we're not the only ones in this space. There's some other great sections going on today at COLTT and yesterday recorded on this topic, but we'd love to hear from you. Love to hear about what you're doing and how you're connecting and caring for your students. And thank you so much.
As we said, this is a work in progress. So if you have any extra information to share with us to add, we would love to hear those ideas as well.
Yeah. Thank you all so
All right.
much.
Thank you, everyone.